Why on earth landing pages? You've got so much experience in everything within marketing and you choose landing
It's on
pages.
average 76 touch points, 76 digital touch points in the B2B buying journey. So if you're sales led and you're sitting there and you're hounding your marketing team to deliver demo requests because you've had a campaign live for 2 weeks, you are so off. I met my husband on Tinder 12 years ago, and we both kind of wanted the same thing. We wanted to hope we'd meet someone nice, we'd date, maybe get married, have kids, live in the suburbs, American dream, whatever, right? But if he came out the gate in our first conversation and said, you know what, I really like you, let's get married, never talk to him again, I would have been like, wow. But that is exactly what we do, right? If we all had the silver bullet, which is how CEOs view us, right? It's like, we hire a marketer and we should be, $10 million ARR next year or whatever. And I always say this, which is, if you think I could print money like that, you think I would be working for you? No, I'd be on an island with all my money, sipping pina coladas, not thinking about you, not giving you a single thought.
So what are the fatal mistakes that you see some companies making with their landing pages?
Well, the first thing is not having one.
Pass, Boba, the one and only landing page queen. How are you doing?
Love to hear it. Thank you for that intro. I'm going to carry you around with me. So you may
Please.
just announce me in every room.
Yeah.
Like that. I am doing great, ready to talk about landing pages anytime. So let's go.
Okay. So question number one. First of all, thank you for joining Banter with Billy, where nothing is taken too seriously, although we do have very meaningful discussions. Why on earth landing pages? You've got so much experience in everything within marketing and you choose landing pages. What is so special about landing pages that you have a whole career out of it? An empire.
Yeah. An empire. Wow. Okay.
Well, you're the queen. So, queens have empires and stuff like that. So I'm just following that kind of.
Yeah, I love that. I think I'm going to refer to it as that from now on. I don't
The
have
landing
a company.
page empire.
Not a consultancy. It's
No.
an empire.
Exactly.
So, there's endless discussions online about whether you should niche or not niche when you go out on your own and start your own company. And while I'm obviously very heavy in the niche, it was a journey to get to this point because just like you mentioned, I was head of digital for 3 companies, digital and website, which has everything underneath it, right? The website, SEO, analytics, reporting, setting up GA, GTM, creatives, landing pages, running paid, managing agencies. This was all part of my job description. And I had teams then under me who would handle each component of this. And I remember vividly telling my direct reports or telling anybody who was kind of, just starting out, try to broaden up your skill set, because that's going to serve you really well as you climb the ladder. And that's just how we've all imagined it being. So that's all I've done. But then I realized very quickly when I came out and I was like, wow, I'm already pretty niche. I'm head of digital and website. Everybody else is a fractional CMO. This is great. And I remember when I first went out on my own, I put out this LinkedIn post and I said, all right, I'm out on my own. I'm a fractional head of digital and website. Anything you need help with in that area, I'm ready for you. And then I was sitting there like this, arms open, just waiting for the outpour of support and leads and all of these things, right? And I did get some. They were people who had worked with me prior. They're moved on to different companies, that kind of thing. So great. But then in terms of inbound, it was a little more difficult for net new business, people I didn't already know, because I could do so many things, but they didn't know what I was good at and hadn't seen a lot of the work because a lot of the work was in-house. Ultimately, I had another LinkedIn friend of mine who's very big fan of the niche, Anthony Pieri. He runs Fletch PMM and they only do homepages. So they do positioning and the deliverable are homepages. And they've built $1 million ARR company just doing this one thing. He's like, I'm going to go to your website. I'm like, don't go to my website. Goes to my website. It's like a cheesecake factory menu. He's like, you literally do everything. How is somebody supposed to decide? They get decision fatigue and they leave. And he said, honestly, we get a lot of questions and people asking us if we know somebody who can help them with campaign landing pages. And we never have someone to refer them to. That is not our space. But looking at your background, it's a perfect intersection of you being head of website, you being head of digital into this one experience. So web pages that convert. And you would think, man, how many different things can you talk about with landing pages? Turns out there's a lot to talk about.
But the landing page is just one part in the whole sort of like lead generation funnel
Yes.
and one part of the sales process, or if you're not getting involved in the other parts, like the messaging on the website might be awful, but your landing
Yes.
page is great. The ads, that may be terrible and your landing page may be great. And they all influence how good your work is going to be or how
Yeah.
well your work is going to be judged. So how do you separate it? I mean, that's how we usually get dragged into other things because, yes, we'd like to do just paid campaigns or we'd like to do just messaging. But then we see that, the nurture emails are so bad that if we don't do the nurture emails, then all the work we've done on the campaigns is, out of the water. So how do you manage to isolate it to just be a landing page?
So I have a 3-stage process, and that helps me cover what the landing pages are going to enable the client to do, but also can we go a little bit beyond that and teach them how to use that in other components of what they're doing without me necessarily being involved. So the first stage is the research component. So I call it the buyer's business case, where it's like, I don't need to know every feature and every launch and every single thing that's coming out of your company. If I was a buyer, what is the information I need in order to justify this purchase and justify me going around internally at the company and trying to get approvals for this tool? And that's the only information I put together for them. So I call it the buyer's business case. I marry external research. What's the internet saying about you, the LLMs? What are you saying about yourself? Is that the same thing? And so I don't do positioning work, but I reflect it back to them. And if they don't like what they see in the mirror, that's their, inkling to then go get some positioning work done. I put the business case together. Only once that's approved, then we move on to writing their core set of landing pages, which we come up with based on what their competitive edge in the market is. And then the third part is actually me sitting with them through a couple of testing cycles to teach them what are the signals you need to look for, because B2B, you can't expect people to make a conversion immediately on the first visit for a 5-figure deal, 6-figure deal. That's just not going to happen.
In the wild, wild past, it used to be click-through rates and it used to be, the number of demo calls booked, and it doesn't work like that anymore, right? People will go to your landing page and Google the company. And then at one point, after they've had like a million touch points, they'll book the
Yes.
appointment. What are the metrics that you're suggesting or to check whether a landing page is doing well or not?
Okay, so I divide this into 3 buckets. So the first one is pre-conversion. So there are a lot of strong signals that will indicate for us what's going to happen before the conversion. So if you have a general web analytics, whether it's GA4 or something else that you're using, because marketers are triggered by GA4 now. And now GA4 has an MCP, so you can literally just ask Claude or ChatGPT, hey, how are my pages doing? Those are the things that are going to tell you how long people are staying on the page, right? Most landing pages, when we think about them, I think about the one with the form up top. We can talk about the anatomy too at some point, because everything I do is counterintuitive to that. Mine is more long form pages. So we're looking at how much time is your ICP spending on the page? Is that increasing over time since the campaign launched? Okay, so maybe they were spending a minute before, now they're spending a minute 30. Positive indicator. Right. Second, using a heat mapping tool, looking at, okay, earlier only 30% got to the bottom of the page. Now it's 50%. Positive indicator. And this was an important example with Snagit. We saw that in 2000 sessions, 15% of the clicks went to the 4th FAQ on the page, all the way in the bottom, the 4th FAQ. Why the 4th FAQ? So we were able to see that they were very interested in this through the heat map. We go down there, we open it up. The 4th FAQ is, hey, this is a lifetime license. If I buy it and I switch devices, what happens? They're like not going to buy a lifetime thing if they can't take it device to device. So we took that block, that FAQ, we pulled it up, made it its own block on the page and said, a license that goes with you, no matter your device, region, whatever, right? Nice. And then we said, okay, you have a license key and it transfers over. And then we saw conversions jump 265% after we put that block on there. Purchases, not free trials, purchases. It was kind of like the only thing they needed. They're like, screw it, I'm just going to buy it. That is the kind of information you would never get if you only focused on conversion data, right? You have to look at the pre-signals, the pre-conversion signals, and whether they're positive or negative, and make optimizations based on that. Because the statistics from Dream Data, they say 70% of research is done before they ever interact with you. They're doing it in LLMs, they're doing it in search. Now only 68% of searches don't result in a click. SparkToro put out that data metric like last week. And then it takes on average 76 touch points, 76 digital touch points in the B2B buying journey. So they are not converting on the
And
first
not by the same person either, by the buyer committee.
that's probably only one person. So imagine how many in the buyer
Oh my
committee when there's
God.
6.8 average stakeholders in every purchase. So if you're sales led and you're sitting there and you're hounding your marketing team to deliver demo requests because you've had a campaign live for 2 weeks, you are so off track. So off
Yep.
track.
And
You
that's what's
haven't
happening.
given it, yeah, you
That's what's
haven't given it
happening.
time to bake. You're
Hmm.
saying, I want, I want this fantastic cake, but I need you to bake it in 2 minutes. It's not going to happen.
Right.
You're going to get sludge. So that's kind of the pre-indication before the conversion happens. The conversion then happens. Now you're going to be looking at ICP density, the conversions, look at the quality. So those are now you're going to be looking at the quality of the conversions. Okay, they're going higher. You're going to talk to sales. Hey, how are those conversations going? Are they easier for you? Because we're handling a lot of those objections up front. We're being clear about what the product is and what it does and the core features. What are the things that you're hearing? What are the objections you're hearing? We're going to put that in the FAQs, right? And then looking at the actual deals themselves. If your average deal like size is like 50K and it takes your sales cycle is like 90 days, but now it's going to 85, 82, getting lower and lower. We're looking at deal velocity, right? How fast the deals are closing, pipeline quality. So that's all the post conversion metrics that will also help you look at.
Everybody knows that attribution sucks, right? Only the other day, we had a new prospect that got to us through Claude, but on our HubSpot, it said that they got to us through Google. And I spoke to him and he said, I found you through Claude. And then I Googled you. And I'm like, great, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
attribution. Like, seriously. So at the
Yeah.
end of the day, can you actually trace back to the landing page if they just visited it?
So what you can do, there are a couple of ways you can do it. One, you toggle spend up or toggle spend down and see if your volume of deals goes up or down to understand the impact of a certain channel on your deals, on the volume, on the quality. You can either risk more money or you can risk less money, right? And so you can choose to turn something off, a lower spend. Maybe you're spending 90,000 on LinkedIn, you take it down to 50, see if that impacts how many volume of deals, whatever, for maybe a month. At least like, okay, in a month we can expect 100 MQLs. Maybe we'll expect 80, but what's the density of that? Is that going to be impacted? And sometimes a lot of the clients, especially the bigger ones that are sales led, will have some kind of I call them ABM tools where they can see then, okay, more of our key accounts are coming to the page than before, more interactions, they're returning, the return visits to those pages. That's how we also can indicate whether it is working in the pre or post and stuff like that.
Okay. So what are the, the fatal mistakes that you see some companies making with their landing pages?
Well, the first thing is not having one. I partner with Unbounce. They did a whole bunch of research on this based on their sample size. 52% don't even go to a landing page. So, mistake number one, not having a landing page, right? Mistake number two, then not following or understanding all the requirements in order to be compliant with the ad platforms on these landing pages. And the nice part about these platforms is they don't like to tell you explicitly what it is that they require of the page in order for it to be.
And they change it as well. Even if it was relevant yesterday, tomorrow morning it might
Yes.
not.
Yes, so they change it often, right? So in any marketer's mind, the old landing page setup or how we're trained to think about it is kind of like this, this page that traps everybody. There's no navigation, there's a logo, minimal text, there's a big old form, there's a couple of extra things, that's it. No footer or minimal footer. But now Google requires you to have a navigation element on landing pages. And if you don't, then you're at the risk of not being shown at all, no matter how much money you put on there. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it talks about Google search navigation, why that's important. So what they've done is their algorithm now, say you type in something like accounting software, and they are looking at how a user behaves. If a user clicks on your landing page and then they go back to Google and refine a search, that's a ding against you because they're saying the user did not find what they wanted on your page and had to come back. That's a bad experience. Ding, ding, ding. Your quality score is going down. We're not going to show your page. Then the third, and my favorite, I love to use a dating analogy, which is if someone's typing in accounting software, you don't know how far they are in their journey. You don't know anything about it, right? I always say this, which is I met my husband on Tinder 12 years ago, and we both kind of wanted the same thing. We want to hope we meet someone nice. We date. maybe get married, have kids, live in the suburbs, American dream, whatever, right? But if he came out the gate in our first conversation and said, you know what, I really like you, let's get married, never talk to him again, I would have been like, wow. But that is exactly what we do, right? Accounting software, go to the page, here's a form, and the form just to see the product. Why would I give you my only points of leverage online, which is my information and access to me, just to see your product, knowing fully well you're either going to harass me endlessly all day or I'll never hear from you? So I always say you have to date them before you ask them to marry you.
Yes,
And
please.
so, based on the search, you're going to provide them the information. You're going to be a guide, not a seller. That's what April Dunford says, to quote the actual queen of positioning. And she always talks about you provide value and you earn the ask. And that's what we do on the landing pages. We talk about, hey, here's our core capability, maybe leading with the differentiator, whatever's important to the market. Showcase the product openly and freely. Talk about the problems we solve, the gaps we saw in the market, how we solve them, right? Why we're different. Proof that other people like you have used us. Common objections that we hear on sales calls so we can just get them right out of the way. And then, hey, if you want to have a further discussion about this, great. Fill out this form. Here are the steps you can expect after you give us your information. We will respect your information. We will reach out to you within 24 hours. We'll have a quick discussion about your use cases. Then we'll meet for a custom demo. And that's kind of the approach that we take on these pages.
And one more issue that I see a lot is having a disconnected landing page. What do I mean by that? That the landing page is speaking one brand language and one set of messaging, but nothing else about the company. It is referring to the product in that way, or to the customer experience, or to that industry. It can't live in isolation. It can't be just that landing page. It has to be part of a package that, if people are searching for more information, they'll see it also on the website. They might see a YouTube video. They'll see blog posts about the same issue. Otherwise, it can't just float and live there.
So one of the things that I tell my clients too is, they're like, well, why would I need to have a dedicated landing page? We worked so hard on this product page and the whole company's bought in and I'm going to send it over there. And I was like, oh, in your stakeholders, did you have a single customer on there? No. It's always the CEO and everybody else who has an opinion. And I said, okay, well, if you want to, right now, while we're talking on this call, if you want to go change the headline on the homepage, can you just do it? Like, well, technically I could. I'd probably get in trouble. I probably need to get the approvals. I'm like, okay. So when I talk about these evergreen landing pages, it's your core set of landing pages. You never turn them off. I call it this little microsite where marketers have full control of what that messaging and everything is in the name of testing, right? So say someone sees it in the company, like, I ran into this landing page. You're like, well, no, we're just testing messaging. So now what happens is when everyone's having discussions about what the next hero should be, what the next thing on the product page should be, you actually have a data point based on your ICP interacting with this messaging. And you're able to come in and say, hey, Mr. Product Guy, head of product, I know that you want to lead with this crazy integration that you've been working on forever, right? Because your team's been dying, like trying to figure out the MCP for the product. But actually, the thing that people are buying for is the 24/7 human customer support. Here's the data to support it based on our landing pages and the queries and the interaction and the FAQs, that kind of stuff. So now the marketers are equipped with more data and tools because they've done some of the testing to come and inform some of those decisions in those meetings. And we're not just going off of someone's power trip or gut instinct or whatever, right? And so the landing pages are kind of built like that because what happened was, and I always use this example, I wanted to buy Zoom Info Form Enrich, which helps you shorten the forms on your website. You plug in your email.
Yep,
It
fills in
enriches
the
in the
rest.
back end. Yeah. So I had this thing that said, okay, slide number 1. What is our problem? Why am I even looking for something like this, right? Here are our problems. Here's the experience right now. Our conversion rates are X. Then I said, here's some agnostic research on how shortening forms in general increases conversions. And I brought in, oh, you should have seen it. I brought in the fog behavioral theory. And I brought in all of these agnostic things and charts and stuff to show them. And I said, here are our options. Number 1, we can we can try to do it manually. The only ability we have through our marketing automation platform is progressive form fill, or just lowering the number of fields. Sales doesn't want to do that. Progressive form fill requires the user to come back multiple times. Our average right now is 1.5. So I don't know if they're even going to come back to fill out the
Right.
rest of the information. So we'll have a lot of empty spaces in the database. Or third, we could invest in a tool like ZoomInfo, which might have some upfront costs, but it'll help us get a fuller database, higher conversion rates in the future. To implement this, here are the costs for each one. Here are the resources, who's involved with the stakeholders, what the total cost is in money, time. And then the last one was timeline for implementation. If we went with my recommended option, which was ZoomInfo Form Enrich, by the way, I can get it up and ready within 6 weeks. And I thought to myself, you know how long it takes me every time I need to just fill in this templated business case deck? Anytime I want a new partner or vendor, I'm going back and forth with ZoomInfo, I'm going back and forth with the agency partners, all of this stuff, right? What if ZoomInfo just had a landing page that said, here are the problems in the market. Here are the conversion rates and agnostic data to support this. Here's how we solve that. Here's proof from other customers. Here's how much it would cost to implement. Here's the long-term cost and effects of time and resources. And here's the process with timeline and implementation, how quick you can get it done. That deal would have closed so much faster because I would have had all the information. It took me a month to gather that information between talking to everyone. That is literally what I did. And I got approval on a $50,000 investment and tool. That buyer's business case is what the landing pages are built off of. The bigger the company, the more landing pages you might have. You might have a whole page dedicated to the product overview, core features. You'll have a whole page dedicated to the comparison pages. So I'm not talking about ZoomInfo versus like one-on-one competitors. I'm talking about what are my options in the market as a buyer? You have ZoomInfo, you have cobbling tools together, you could do it manually. Having that whole conversation in there and showing that to them. If I type in ZoomInfo Form Enrich reviews, we just leave it up to the universe and G2 and whatever to say whatever they want about us. We don't control the narrative. I actually put together a landing page that collects all that proof, almost like a wall of love, because people don't read deep case studies. They like the summarization. We put multiple case studies on there, just like a light summary of each one. We do different proof points. Here are all the logos we've worked with. Here are some agnostic ones from G2, Capterra, wherever. Here are the ones customers have given us directly. It's a whole bucket of proof that isn't the same 3 testimonials rotating across your entire website and all your landing pages. So we collect those. And then finally, okay, you've seen how we compare. You've seen what we do. You've seen whether we serve your segment. Do you want to have a conversation?
Impressive. So, Tass, tell me one more sort of like really golden nugget that you've sort of like really cracked the code on landing pages. What would that be?
I would say that I love to zig when everyone zags. And I think that's the thing that's going to catch the attention in the market now is people who do stand out. I think that we're so desensitized to how people sell in B2B that it's actually delightful when someone tries to provide you with value first. And I always say you trust your buyers to make $50,000 decisions, but then you think you're going to trap them on a page with a form and 2 or 3 bullet points about how you're AI powered. They are so much smarter than that. They
Oh,
are
yeah.
so busy. Why don't you try, just like you try to make your manager's job easier, why don't you try to make your buyer's job really easy in order to justify even talking to you? It's really not that hard. It's not that hard.
Tass, you've been amazing. And you're so, you explain things that, very articulately. I love it. And it's so like, I can understand how anybody who would come into a meeting with you would be like, duh, of course, I need to work with her. So I'm
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Speak to you soon. Bye.